A top cancer charity out of Canada apologizes for using the word cervix instead of trans-friendly front hole. Folks, now I think I've heard it all, but I've got proud gay comedian James Barr on with me today to defend that woke joke and more. The show starts now. Front hole. Front hole, folks. I could have gone my whole entire life without knowing the woke and trans-friendly term for cervix is front hole. I don't know what's dumber or more delusional, the fact that some are trying to make front hole terminology a thing, or that a leading cancer charity, the Canadian Cancer Society, has apologized for not using it and instead referring to a woman's cervix as a cervix. In a statement from the nonprofit's website, the Canadian Cancer Society lamented their mistake and acknowledged that non-binary people have mixed feelings or maybe feel distanced from the term cervix and may prefer more inclusive terms like front hole. Now, this is coming out of Canada, a formerly very vanilla and boring country that is seemingly trying to make a mark on the world through embarrassment and humiliation. Once again, the woke leftists are trying to erase women, our body parts, and everything that makes us scientifically unique in an effort to appease and affirm what I would argue is borderline mental illness. But I have a feeling my guest today doesn't see it that way at all, so let me bring him in, comedian and a Gay and a Nongay podcast host, James Barr. All right, James, you got to defend front hole to me, a woman. You got to tell me why that's a more inclusive term and why we should be using it.
Firstly, happy Pride Month to the USA. Love you so much here from London. I've got to be honest, like me and my friends use lots of different terms for the front hole. Lady Garden, vajayjay. Like there's a lot of words we can use to be affectionate about our body parts. I don't know why front hole is offensive to you.
It's really offensive because it's replacing the actual term cervix, which only women have, and saying that we should instead refer to it as a front hole because it's more...
I'm no scientist, but that's not biologically correct because trans men can also have a cervix. So
see, you don't even know. You don't even know the terminology. Trans man,
I'm not
trans
trans,
woman.
and I don't have a cervix, so of course not. But I think the point is, this charity is just trying to do their best, and now loads of people on the right are attacking them, and really they're just trying to save lives here. They're not trying to upset women. They're trying to include more women.
But biological men do not have a cervix. So this is a moot point. It doesn't exist. It's an imaginary.
But there are trans men that have a cervix, right? And so they want to make sure that those trans men are not being excluded from messaging about cancer.
Do you think, and I just want you to be honest, do you think that some of this trying to rearrange words and make up new words and redefine things, do you think maybe it's gone a little far, that your average person out there just simply cannot keep up with all the political correct language that's been changed and altered over the last 3 or 4 years to appease and not offend anybody?
To an extent, I wouldn't argue with what you've said. I mean, I know you get so angry about Pride Month, it drives you mad, but it also drives a lot of queer people mad because corporations are trying to cash in on the rainbow flag. And really, we're just trying to live our lives. Like, that really is what all of this Pride is about. It's about people trying to get on with their lives, during a very difficult time. And so, yeah, I think you've got a really good point there, Tommy. I think that is accurate, but it's a problem when programs like yours and YouTube channels get really angry about it and they whip people up into this frenzy when really it's just a charity trying to include more people. And sure, it might offend the odd woman, and that's really disappointing. They shouldn't do that. Women are hugely important. And as you rightly point out, mostly it's women that have a cervix, but there are also men that have a cervix and they need to be talked to as well. And talking to, less than 1% of the population doesn't take away the power and the importance of talking to the rest of the population as well. We can't look at it like that.
Okay. Well, you said a lot of stuff there. Some I agree with, some I disagree with. So I want to go to the part where we have some agreement because I want to dive in. I think this is really interesting. You feel like maybe corporate America, global corporatism is hijacking Pride Month and using it to pander is what I kind of got out of one of your statements. And I would tend to agree with you on that. I don't understand why Major League Baseball has to have a rainbow. I don't understand why the NBA has to have a rainbow, why Microsoft has to have a rainbow for the month of June. I would feel, if I were part of the LGBTQ community, I would feel like those organizations, those leagues, I would feel like they were kind of pathetically pandering to me if I were in that community. And it sounds like maybe you and I have some agreement on that. So I want to dive in a little further. Do you think that these companies are exploiting what it is to be part of the LGBTQ community for their own
I don't think that's
gain?
what they're trying to do, Tommy. I think they're trying to, and I love that they're doing this, they're trying to include everyone. They're trying to tell people that they support queer lives, and they're trying to tell their employees that they support queer lives. They're trying to make everybody feel safe. They're trying to make everybody feel welcome. And that is hugely important in a world that previously made us feel unwelcome. And there's still a lot of places in the world where queer people are unwelcome. And I don't just mean countries, I mean also certain states. Like, it is difficult to be a gay person. So corporate America hijacking Pride, it's coming from a good place. But, I think queer people are also finding it a little bit exhausting, because are you actually supporting queer people, or are you just putting a rainbow flag on a Mercedes-Benz? What are you doing underneath the hood?
Right. So I want to ask you about that. I would assume that when you say you're referring to certain states, you would mean American states. Do you know what state in America it would be hard to be a queer person?
I don't know America well enough to know which state in America is hard to be a queer person in. I know it's incredibly difficult to be a woman in a lot of states with so many different abortion bans.
You think that makes it hard to be a woman because there are certain restrictions on abortion?
Well, I don't want to fall out with you, Tommy. You tell me what you think. I would say anything, any government, any level of government telling a woman or any person what to do with their body is a problem, personally.
So you and I might have some slight microscopic agreement on this point, because I differ from a lot of hard right conservatives on this issue, where I am a little bit more libertarian in my approach. I'm a little bit more pro-choice in the fact that I don't believe that the government should have so many restrictions, because I don't think the government does a good job with the abortion issue. So that's where I stand on it. I don't believe in abortion bans or states that don't have exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. I think that's ridiculous. So you and I have some agreement there. But I think too, when we're talking about government intervention, for me, I wish that there would have been more, maybe liberals, maybe folks on the left who were more outspoken during the COVID era, when the government was telling people that they needed to get, a rushed emergency vaccine. I didn't see a lot of liberals or leftists standing up against that to this day claim that we should all have autonomy of our own bodies. What's your take on that?
It's a great point. I think we've got to be careful not to think that just because one person thinks one thing, they think another, and you're trying to create that conversation with your comment here. And that's wrong. You know that, because you can be liberal on some issues and right-wing on others. No one is pure left or pure right. We're all somewhere in the middle, and it's all about how we talk about those issues and come to a sort of pathway for peace, right? Like, sometimes there are states that are vehemently attacking queer people with trans bathroom bans, and there's language coming out of different politicians in different states that are attacking queer people. So on some level, there are places in America where it is less favorable to be gay. Florida, don't say gay. Like, that's not okay. That's an attack on queer people.
But you understand that don't say gay is actually a lie. There's no ban on saying gay. It's just, please don't put gender ideology and sexual preference into the classroom, because it's not where it belongs. Reading, writing, arithmetic is where it belongs. Don't confuse young people talking about sexual preferences before they have any idea.
This is a thing I disagree with you on. You call it sexual preferences. I don't see gay pride as being a sexual preference, personally. I think being queer can be an identity beyond who you decide to have sex with. So you're drilling it down to a conversation about sex, but actually it's a conversation about who we love and who we are as people.
Do you think young people, and I'm talking 12 and under?
I think that young people in Florida deserve to know that there are families with two dads. Yeah. And I think that would stop a lot of bullying and create a lot of inclusion. And that is important if we want to live in a country that is happy with itself.
I don't think there's anybody that's arguing that we shouldn't talk about the differences in certain family structures. I think it's more, should young people be questioning their own biology and gender before they even really know what their body parts are, before they even understand what sexual preference or gender identity is? Should that be pumped into the curriculum, or is that something that maybe parents should take the lead on? I would personally think that parents should do that, and that includes whatever parents want to teach their children. I might disagree with it, but I think parents have that right. I don't think the school does. I think the school should stay out of those conversations.
Look, I guess you're right. I think what you've said is true, but like, also you have to remember that when we grow up, we are taught so much about the straight world, and we exist almost in a straitjacket. When I grew up, I lived in a time in the UK where don't say gay, we called it Section 28, was literally enforced. And it meant that when I was bullied for being gay, a word I didn't even understand myself at that point because no one had told me, the teachers couldn't do anything because it was literally banned from a government level. So don't say gay and not teaching people that there are lots of different versions of people out there, it's a mistake. You should teach people. And it's not about telling them, oh, you can be gay or you can change who you are. It's about saying, if you are gay, that is cool, that's fine. It's not about forcing people to be gay or trying to change who they are. It's about telling them that they can be themselves.
Well, I'm in agreement with that. I do believe everyone should be able to be themselves. I just would hope that nothing's being thrust upon young people. I would hope that they weren't being influenced one way or another at such a young age by a government institution or a teacher or an administration. But, I want to talk and
well,
kind of...
I agree, but then we should be doing that for straight people too. We should stop Disney from having straight couples or straight love stories. Like, let's just get rid of all of it. Let's get rid of all of the gender. Let's stop telling girls they have to wear certain clothes. Let's stop telling boys they're not allowed to cry.
I think that when it comes to what you want to do, how you want to play, and if you want to wear this or wear that, I honestly, quite frankly, don't care. I just think that children need to be left out of the exploitation and allowed to have their innocence as children. And you know what? If that means boys playing with dolls or girls playing with trucks, I really don't care. I don't think that there should be, any shame in that whatsoever. But, I feel like maybe you talking about a time when you were in school and you were bullied, I feel like there's maybe a part of the activist community that's trying to maybe compensate for a time when there was legitimate harassment and bullying of people in the LGBTQ community. Now it feels like we've gone so far the other way, and I want to bring this up, another example from America. We've got 3 teens in Washington who are facing 10 years in jail for making skid marks on an LGBTQ rainbow mural. Now listen, I think we should be respectful of whatever. I don't think, quite frankly, you should put one of those murals in the middle of a public street. But do you think that, maybe facing prison time or jail time for making skid marks on a rainbow on the street, you think maybe that's a little far?
Do you think vandalism is okay? Do you think that's okay? Or do you think people that vandalize public murals or public property should be penalized for that?
Do you think that that's a mural, them painting an LGBTQ?
I'm just saying, I don't necessarily think that you can criticize this situation and make it about a flag when really they're vandalizing deliberately something that's been painted on a street.
Yeah, I don't think it should be painted on a street, quite honestly. I don't think
no, obviously, Tomi, but if it wasn't a rainbow flag and it was anything else, like an American flag, you'd be fuming. You'd be really angry.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody facing 10 years in jail for doing anything to the American flag, because we've got Americans in our city streets right now in New York City burning the American flag and also chanting death to the Jews and advocating for Hamas. So, to me, the double standard is what is infuriating. So I kind of want to get your take on that as well. You being in the UK, you guys have seen it. We see it here on a daily basis now. This whole Queers for Palestine, to me, that seems like maybe an oxymoron, given we know how queers would be treated in Palestine or in Muslim fundamentalist countries. So I want to get your take on that. Do you think
how would they be treated, Tomi? Have you been to those places? Like, have you met or spoken to queer people in those places? Do you know how they would be treated, or are you disputing
that countries like Iran don't discriminate against gay people and don't push them
I'm
off
saying that there
buildings,
are gay
publicly
people in
rock them?
Iran, and that if Iran is like, these people still deserve to be free, Tomi, regardless of whether, like, our gay rights are not more important than their rights to live as human beings. And yes, I hear the stories of how, well, I've seen the news, you know, gay people get thrown off roofs. Well, they don't have any roofs right now in Gaza to throw gay people off, because I think I'm right in saying way over 50% of Gaza has been destroyed by Israeli bombs. And the situation is nuanced. I have a lot of Israeli friends. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have Palestinian friends. It's really difficult to know where to stand on it, but I absolutely hate it. And I will not stand for people making this into a gay issue, because it's not. It's a human rights issue.
Yeah, it may be, and there's more discussion to be had there. I guess for me, when I see the protests and I see people with Queers for Palestine and saying that Hamas would treat LGBTQ people fondly or kindly, we know that's not the truth. If you follow,
I haven't seen anything about what Hamas think about LGBTQ plus people, to be honest. I think
James,
Hamas
you're kidding me. You think that Muslim
what they did on October
fundamentalists
7th was absolutely horrendous. So I don't really care what Hamas think of queer people, but I do care what innocent civilians are going through. That's what I care about.
Does it bother you that Hamas hides hostages in civilian areas, or that Hamas puts their weapons in civilian areas and over tunnels that they've created to attack the Jewish people?
Yes.
Because I mean, that's a big part. Well, that's a big part of the calculation here. If you're trying to fight a war to eradicate a terrorist group, and said terrorist group decides that they are going to use civilians as human shields, you can understand where Israel might be in a little bit of a difficult position here, not wanting to take out civilians, but being that they are fighting an enemy that uses civilians as fodder, it's a difficult position for Israeli forces to be in. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say that, and you know, yeah, I do, but I also think Israel has a lot more power and a lot more allies, and I think they can do better. They can be more efficient.
Okay. Well, neither one of us are military, so I'm not going to comment on the effectiveness of the Israeli military. I do believe that Israel has a right to exist, and I don't see Israelis talking
honestly, like, it's not appropriate to keep bringing this back to queer issues. It's really not.
Well, I'm not bringing it to queer issues. There's queers in the street advocating for Hamas, which is why I'm discussing
There's also straight people in the street.
Of course there are. But
and there's women, and there's people of all different races, genders, everything, religions. So why are you bringing it to queer people?
Well, I would think that women advocating for Hamas is also an oxymoron, because I don't think that females are treated well by Muslim fundamentalist countries either. I don't think they have the rights and the freedoms that they would enjoy in some place like Israel, for example.
So do you think that the women that live there should just be killed?
No, absolutely not. But I do understand that it is a war, and I understand that Israel is trying to take out a terrorist group that exploits their own people. So I think the Palestinian people would be better off if Hamas was eradicated from the face of the earth. Wouldn't you?
Not at the cost of their lives.
Okay. Well, we're gonna reach an impasse on this one.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's you can't ask that question without.
So you would rather Israel do nothing?
Hundreds of them dying.
So Israel should do nothing. They should just be attacked over and over again.
I don't know, but I don't think what's happening is okay, and neither do the United Nations.
The United Nations, yeah. There's a lot to get into with the United Nations.
Well, let's not talk about it, Tomi, because.
Okay. Well, before I get into some more, I guess I would call fun pop culture related topics, I do want to get your opinion as somebody in the UK of the American system of government. I take it you're probably not a fan of Donald Trump, but I have to ask you, if you were an American and you were voting in our elections and you had the choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which would you choose?
I'd choose Joe Biden.
Please tell me why.
Well, he's bi, but also I think that he's an important, an amazing leader that has helped your country in many, many ways, especially with COVID, which Donald Trump was a complete mess.
He helped us with COVID? In what way?
Well, Tomi, I'm not an American, but looking at it as an international person, I would say that Joe Biden is definitely a better choice for America and the world. Donald Trump has sown so much division in your country. And I know it's disappointing to look at a president and go, well, what isn't he? And then vote for him. But that really is the situation we're in here. Like, it's not how amazing is Joe Biden. I think you'd agree. It's why is he the one to guide us through this? And how is he going to keep America and the world safer? That's really the question that I'd be looking at.
Do you think the world has been safer under Joe Biden? I mean, we had no wars under Donald Trump. In fact, he ended and defeated ISIS. But under Joe Biden, we've got 2. So I would argue...
He pulled out of Afghanistan, right? Trump did that.
No, that was Joe Biden that pulled out of Afghanistan.
It was during Joe Biden, but that was definitely something that had started to happen before Joe Biden took over, right?
I don't think anybody's disagreeing that we needed to withdraw from Afghanistan. It was how it was done under the direction and leadership of our commander-in-chief, Joseph Biden, that was the problem. It wasn't that we left. I think most people agree we should have left. It's just maybe don't leave in such a haphazard way that Americans die, that you've got Afghani civilians trying to cling to planes because they know that they're going to be targeted and slaughtered by the Taliban. I mean, that was a debacle of epic proportions, and Donald Trump was not our commander-in-chief.
But that was his decision. Do you think that, do you think the riots on the Capitol building were okay? Like, that is a fundamental moment in history where an American president has challenged the law, which he's supposedly enforcing, and incited a riot on the Capitol building. I mean, looking at it as a British person, I don't know how anyone could ever vote for someone.
So
that
I have to ask you about this. So I have come out many times and denounced what happened on January 6th. I don't believe we'll ever get the real truth on what happened on January 6th and who was really behind and involved in it and how many of those people were truly Trump supporters. But we're never going to know, so it's not worth debating. I will say,
he's also a convicted felon. Like, that's and you can argue all you want that like that's Democrats out to get him, but
yeah,
legally, if you believe in law, then you accept law, right? And if you don't believe in law, that's kind of worrying. So it strikes me as a little concerning that you have an American president that is saying that he's being stitched up by his own.
Do you know what his crime was?
Yeah, it's a felony in New York to falsify business records. And
actually, it's not. That's actually a misdemeanor.
So tell me.
So what is the crime?
So didn't he pay hush money and then lie about it?
It's not illegal to pay hush money or NDAs, and he never lied about paying off an NDA.
So rather than making me look stupid because I'm not like on top of this situation, tell me exactly what he's done that's illegal.
Exactly. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, James. We've had legal experts up and down, right and left that cannot figure out the crime. There's no crime. Just because
there is a crime. He falsified business records and lied about it. He paid off a porn star and lied about it. And then he did that to interfere with his own election. That's a crime, right? That's what he's been charged with.
Well, falsifying or misclassifying business records in your bookkeeping is a misdemeanor that statute of limitations had run out on. So I'm telling you, I can't find the crime either. They had to kind of jumble it together to make it a felony. But I want to ask you, because you brought up a good point, because you brought up January 6th, which I told you I denounced, and I have since the day it happened. But I want to ask you, in looking at America, when you saw the Summer of Love 2020, wherein BLM burned down a good chunk of our country and looted stores and rioted in the streets and attacked police officers, when you saw that, were you a little off-put by what you saw going on in American streets?
I don't know what that has to do with the January 6th.
No, because you were so horrified by the one day that supposed Trump supporters staged an insurrection on the Capitol, but you don't seem super concerned about the major American cities that sustained billions of dollars in damage as BLM rioters killed people, burned buildings, destroyed businesses. That didn't bother you?
Tommy, Black Lives Matter was one of the most important movements
What
ever.
did they accomplish?
And of course, in every movement, there will be people, just like with Trump fans, there will be people that go over, that cross a line. But that doesn't mean that it it's not you're trying to do false equivalence here. Like those two arguments don't exist together.
You're right. It's a false equivalence because so-called Trump supporters had one bad
I never
day.
said Trump supporters. I said Trump had incited that riot. So that's suggesting that Trump made or encouraged some of his supporters to do that. I don't think all Trump supporters are awful people. Obviously not. I would imagine a lot of them are really beautiful people, but some of them aren't. And that's not necessarily that you can't equate that to Black Lives Matter. It's a completely different thing.
You're right, because Black Lives Matter wreaked much more havoc on the United States than January 6ers. I'll tell you that. Billions in damage, and actually people died. Nobody died on January 6th except for Ashley Babbitt. So a lot of people are still unclear as to exactly what happened on that day. But I do want to turn now to maybe a topic where we can have some more resolution, because I want us to end on a good note. We've had some agreements here, and I didn't think we'd have any, so that's a positive. I want to talk to you about Baby Reindeer. I watched a few of the episodes. Thought it was weird. I don't get the hype. I didn't think it was that good of a show, so I'm just going to say that right now. But there has been a lot of discussion about the real Martha, Fiona Harvey, who was on with our mutual friend Piers Morgan. Now she's suing Netflix for $170 million, saying that she was lied on, saying that her life has been destroyed because of that series, that she's easily identifiable. And I will tell you right off the bat, I hope that she gets every penny of that $170 million, and I hope she sues the pants off Netflix, because I do believe she was exploited. So I want to get your take on Baby Reindeer and real Martha.
I think Richard Gadd did a really good job in that show of trying to make sure that no one in particular was, a villain or a good guy. Richard Gadd, I think, comes off pretty badly in that show, and subsequent Twitter threads I've read about his behavior and casting it are pretty shady. So I don't know, but I do think people that have suffered in this way and that have been a victim of this kind of thing do deserve to tell their stories. And so often this stuff doesn't go to trial, and people that have been abused don't get any justice. So I am happy that this story was told, but I also have some sympathy for Fiona, who, I believe to an extent did out herself, although there were people that found her online previous to that. But yeah, I mean, listen, this is her story too. So I think it's a good fight, and I think it probably needs to happen. And either way, whatever the resolution from that court case is, we'll find a resolution, right? Like it'll be justice in some form. And whether that be actually Fiona Harvey is guilty of the things that she's been accused of in this show, and therefore she isn't going to win this trial, or whether it be the other way around, at least we'll know.
Yeah. Well, Piers brought out yesterday that she actually doesn't have a criminal record. She didn't serve time. So they already lied on her. It's not looking good for Netflix. You can't say something's a true story and then ruin somebody's life and make a ton of money off of it and then leave her out in the dust. Quite frankly, feel like she was, at least in the storytelling, she was really victimized by all of this.
It's a bit dumb, that it would open with, this is a true story, when it could easily have been, this is inspired by a true story.
Right. Well, at least we have some agreement on that. I appreciate you coming on the show. Not a lot of left-leaning or liberal folks are willing to come on and have the conversation.
Why?
So
You're a gay icon, Tomi.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. Well, I certainly appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. I hope you'll come back. We'll have more of these conversations, and maybe by that time you can tell me what Donald Trump's crime was.
Yeah, well, by that point, he'll probably be found guilty for a lot more stuff, because I know there's a few other court cases pending. So yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. But again, I'm not an American and I'm not a politician. So I'm just saying how it is.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being honest, and I appreciate our moments of agreement, however few and far between they may be. Appreciate you, and I hope to have you back. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks so much. All right, folks. A mob of thugs loot an AutoZone. Fire hydrants are no longer safe on city streets, and a psychopath smiles and smirks in court after fatally stabbing a 3-year-old to death in a parking lot. Do parents teach right from wrong anymore? Asking for all the decent people left in society. It's time for Final Thoughts. So, folks, I'm not a biblical scholar, but I'm starting to wonder if we are indeed nearing the end of times and the rapture, because things in these streets are getting dire, and it doesn't seem like those who have the power to change it really give a damn. In fact, it seems like it's all part of the plan. Here are just a few recent examples. At 4 a.m. on Monday morning, a mob of looters ransacked and looted an AutoZone in South LA. I cannot for the life of me understand how we got here. Oh, wait, actually, I can. It started in the summer of love 2020 when Democrats told black people and white people with green hair that looting and rioting was okay so long as it was for George Floyd. So I take that back. I know exactly how we got here. But it didn't end in 2020. It was just kicking off. Now this crap happens daily and for no apparent reason. An AutoZone? Really? What basic life necessity do these people need that they decided to huddle up 50 deep and ransack an AutoZone at 4 a.m.? Well, unsurprisingly, from the footage, it would appear a lot of these thugs are young, likely teens or young adults. So where the frick are their parents? But it's not just AutoZone. It's also fire hydrants. Not only can we no longer have nice things in liberal America, we can't even have basic and boring amenities like fire hydrants either. I love this headline from the LAist. What's behind the rise of fire hydrant thefts in South LA? Yeah, it's a real head scratcher for sure. Between January 2023 and May 2024, more than 300 fire hydrants were stolen from LA County streets. It costs about $4,000 to replace those hydrants, by the way. And the likely reason they are being stolen is for scrap metal and brass components. It can't be easy to steal a fire hydrant. It's got to take some real effort. Are the people taking the time to jack these hydrants just really that adverse to gainful employment they'd rather exert energy into stealing a flippin' hydrant rather than get a real job? I mean, shoot, Gavin's mandating a $20 minimum wage to flip burgers at McDonald's, which you'd think would be more profitable and easier than stealing brass off a fire hydrant. I'm mystified, truly. But perhaps the real answer as to why these bizarre and awful things keep happening is that people really do not know and have not been taught right from wrong. Not even basic right from wrong. Like, don't stab toddlers in parking lots for fun. That's too much to ask. At least for Bianca Ellis, who was accused of doing just that, randomly stabbing a little boy to death in a supermarket parking lot in Ohio. If you're wondering how remorseful she is, well, you tell me.
Code section 2903.11A1 and/or endangering children in violation of Ohio Revised Code section 2919.22B2. Count 4 alleges that on or about June 3, 2024, the defendant did knowingly cause serious physical harm to JW on date of birth 10/29/2020.
Smiling and smirking and posing for the camera. Is she mentally ill? Probably. Does she have rocks for brains and degenerates for parents? Probably. And I'd argue that letting people get away with looting an AutoZone or stealing a fire hydrant is the exact precedent and attitude that leads to some of the same people committing much bigger and worse crimes. The line is so blurry now because right and wrong has been muddled up by social justice warriors who excuse and abet this behavior. This country needs a hard right turn, and we need to start locking people up again. I'd argue we need a long pause in our criminal justice reform appeasement BS because it's not working. Like, whatever the opposite of the First Step Act is, do that for as long as it takes. But those are just my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live again at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.